What's up, the internet? It's True Dad Materia. We are just chatting.
We're just
today.
chatting.
Well, for now.
We'll
play some games later.
Yeah, we're now is just chatting. Later is just gaming and chatting. So it's not really a just.
Yeah, we always chat.
We always chat.
But right now we're just chatting.
There's no stopping the chat.
No. We're
anyway, so yeah, today's topic is the lore.
Yeah, True Dad lore.
True Dad lore.
It's the backstory behind such deep characters with whom you can form a real human connection whilst still seeing as distant, unattainable levels of attractive and intelligence.
What he meant by that is, and I'll translate, you get to know more about us.
Yeah, I mean that. I'm in marketing.
I'm in construction. We just have to say it how it is. Either way, this is Just Chatting with True Dad Materia. Okay, well, welcome back. Yeah, it's been a month. Has it been a month?
Yeah. So I basically died.
Yep.
I had COVID for a couple of weeks. My family, my wife and children, were all way worse off than I was. I went for a solid week. 2 weeks ago, I was streaming Raft with Dustin.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was great. I felt great. I went home and promptly got very, very sick.
He died that night.
I died that night.
Yeah.
I died that day.
It took him 2 weeks to get better.
Yeah, it was true. So would not recommend. It's I've had COVID before. It wasn't this bad.
Yeah.
So just if you get it and it's not that bad, don't get it again. It's not worth the repeat purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buyer's remorse?
Buyer's remorse. Yeah. I regret that. I try to get my money back. They don't do refunds.
Yeah, no refunds.
Yeah.
But, you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, so I'm back. I talked a lot earlier. I had a podcast interview. I was on somebody's podcast sharing some PPC tips and then also some agency consulting tips.
PC.
I'm sorry, pay-per-click, like Google ads, Facebook ads, stuff like that. And we turned off the recording. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. We turned off the recording, I think 45, 50 minutes later.
Yeah.
And then we talked for another hour. So
you're all talked out.
I'm all talked out, and I'm going to talk more. So.
Let's kill that thing.
Oh, well.
That way you guys.
COVID.
Yeah. That way you guys don't hear a lovely hum in the background.
Yeah. So that's. Anyway, that's.
So if he sounds like a frog, it's not because he's a frog, or
Jordan
because he still has
Peterson
COVID. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So
backstory.
we're talking backstory. Both of us.
Yeah.
Have been gaming for a long time. And we both have learned some pretty dramatic lessons.
The hard way.
The hard way.
The hard way.
In gaming, which is part of why we have. This podcast.
The main reason, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to go first?
Yeah. I can start. Yeah.
Since you're younger.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. So I've been gaming. Hello, I'm Dustin, and I'm a gamer. Hi. I'm sorry. Yeah. Bad. What is that? The Elk Lodge. Anyways, yeah. So I've been gaming for a long time. It's been 20 plus, whatever. Right. I started off with like RPGs, Final Fantasy, obviously with our name. That's, a huge element. Still love RPGs, but it kind of became one of those, that was my escape. That was my, I'd go home and, from the horrible trials of public school, because that was public school, the horrible trials of public school just scarred me, which it's probably far more scarring now. So I'd go home and just play games, and that was my thing, right? And it just kind of became part of my life. It wasn't really it wasn't even really a relaxing thing anymore. It was just this is what you do. You go home, you finish your homework. Sometimes you do your homework first. Sometimes you forget it and do your, game instead. And so I just played games all the time. That was where my friends were, which I'll get into that in a bit because they weren't really friends anyways. But that's what I did. And it wasn't until being married, we've been married 12 years this year. It wasn't until really even just a couple years ago that, my wife actually helped me understand how horrible that was. Because what I had basically created was a crutch for me to lean on. and to not have to actually confront issues that I was going through. And not to get into the nitty gritty, I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a great childhood. My parents were awesome. But I had anger issues, and I had stuff that I had to deal with. And instead of dealing with these emotional things, I played games. It allowed me to just kind of ignore it altogether. So that was nice. However, in having a serious relationship, whether you're looking to date someone or court, if you're into courting, that's becoming a thing again, which is great. I don't have nothing against it. However, if you're looking into that, I recommend being able to deal with your issues and not neglect them by letting gaming take over. Because what I did was basically get to the point where I didn't even understand all of what my issues were. They were underlying. They kept getting covered up by just the enjoyment of playing a game. And I never really dealt with any of them. And of course, my wife, being the prayer warrior and just straight warrior that she is, helped me confront those. Sometimes, actually, I would say pretty much every time it hurt her more than it hurt me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that took me a long time to realize that, and a lot of it, I would get pretty defensive. Like, no, this is like, you're being ridiculous. And I'll admit a sin here. I've even called her a narcissist, and which is hilarious because it's not true. If any of you know my wife, she is not a narcissist by any means. Yeah, I know. So it's like, shame on me. But we got through that. There was a lot of a learning experience there. I actually ended up, we would, I don't even, once a month at the bare minimum, we would get into a pretty big fight. And things were said that weren't, shouldn't have been said, hurtful things. For the first, because let's see, so I'm horrible with timing. My wife's probably going to listen to this and be like, none of that was accurate. So I'm going to use vague generalizations.
at one point in time.
At one point in time, yeah. At one point in time, we would be fighting, and we didn't really know what the core issue was. She knew she was being neglected in the sense of, me not spending time with her, not validating her or valuing her. And I think to some degree, I probably knew that as well. I probably wanted to not admit it because that meant that, I was doing something wrong, of course, and that can never be true.
Right.
So I just kind of kept pushing it off, and we kept coming back to this, this issue of gaming. It always came back to, well, if you just wouldn't game so much, or, I wish you wouldn't, I wish you'd spend time with the family instead of game, or, fill in the blank. It was always something involving gaming. And I started to get defensive because, it's like, there's no way that like you can just point out gaming as the issue. Like there has to be something else here. And so it took me a while to come around to the idea that's like, no, she's absolutely right. She was sending me podcast links and not in like a, not in a bad way. I mean, I'm sure there's some partners out there that are like, hey, I'm going to beat you down with all of these links proving that you're wrong. She was not that. She was very, very supportive, very helpful. But she was also hurt. So we went through some struggles there. I ended up, it kind of hit me all at once. And I was like, you know what? I need to fix this. This, and as a man, you always want to fix something. Other, men out there were like, yeah, you're right. Or some are like, no, I don't want to fix that, but I'll find the answer to it. And it's like, yeah, that's the same thing. That's literally the same thing. So what I decided was I'm going to do a gaming fast. And we had tried this before, like a media fast. He was like, oh, let's do a week without TV, or let's do, a month. It's like, well, that's a long time. Let's do a month without. And I, in my head, was like, that's kind of ridiculous because I've done that before. You just kind of turn back, and the whole month you're thinking, well, the month's almost over. It'll be fine. I can wait it out. So I was like, well, let's do this. If we're going to do this, let's do it for real. So I said, let's do it for a year. I did no gaming, no phone games, no PC games, no Xbox games for a year. And it was a tough experience at first. And that's because, like, you know, like we had in our previous episode, we talked about dopamine, and it took a lot to get over that, like, instant, like, oh yeah, you don't get to just immediately be successful and everything, right? Yeah, I know, right? I had to actually work for something. So it was one of those types of situations. But like the first few months, they were difficult. I wouldn't, you know, and difficult in the sense of like, I think the hardest thing was for me thinking of something to do, because what would happen is I would get bored, and the immediate thing that would come to my head is, I just want to go play a game. And of course I'd create some excuse of, well, I want to go play a game because we're not doing anything and blah, 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 blah. Right. There was always some reason, you know, well, you're busy doing something, so I can go do what I want to do. And that's a really, I don't want to say a really bad place to be, but a really dangerous place to be.
Yeah. Slippery slope.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope. So first few months are like that. The next few months, I would say I was like forcing myself, and Jenny was helping. My wife was helping. I was forcing myself to know I need to like implement myself back into my family. You know, we had a couple kids at this point. And I need to, you know, make sure that I'm spending time with the family, whether that means I'm just cleaning and the kids are helping me clean, which they were really young, so obviously it didn't really help a whole lot, but or if that means, you know, what I wanted would be like, oh, well, let's go watch a movie together because that's a screen and I get the same thing out of it. But then it was like, okay, well, let's start taking walks. You know, let's go start a little, you know, bonfire and go sit by the fire. Let's go, whatever it was. And my wife was really supportive and really helpful at thinking of those different things to do. And we, you know, still inside of that, we would still get in arguments of, arguments isn't right. She would point out the fact that the things that I wanted to do weren't actually benefiting the family. You know, it was like, well, this is just busy work because I can't go play games. Whereas she's like, well, no, we actually have a house to manage, so we should be managing the house. I know it's not fun. She knew it wasn't fun. But it's like some of these things, even though they're not fun, still have to be done. So we started getting back into that. And, you know, by the end of it, it really changed my attitude completely. And it became more of a, like, at the end of it, it was no longer this, well, I want to go do this. It was more of, I don't know, it's just, I don't know how to explain it the best way, but it's like reprioritizing. You know, your family is what's important. And, like, sure, if you had time and you could game for a little bit, that'd be a, you know, cool thing. And this was actually really, really hard. And some of you people out there who are Final Fantasy nerds would maybe understand how difficult this was for me, because 2 months into this gaming fast was when the Final Fantasy VII Remake came out. And, you know, whether the Final Fantasy VII Remake is great or bad, or, you know, compared to whatever, everyone has their own opinion, right? I think it's fun. I think it's a great game. Anyways, it came out. It was one of those, like, I've been waiting 9 years for this game to come out ever since they announced it. And then all of a sudden, I'm doing a gaming fast, and then they announce it. I was like, are you serious? I have to wait another 8 months or what, you know, however many months it was. So I stuck it out, and which is really funny because I still haven't beat that game. So it's like, was it really that important? You know, was it like, it's not a necessity, you know? Right. So anyways, we did a gaming fast, reoriented my priorities. That was probably the biggest, you know, not to like downplay my wife, because obviously like she had a huge role in that. But that was probably the biggest decision I made to reset, you know, my prioritization. And, you know, since then it's been great. Ryan and I, obviously, you know, we're here streaming and doing this podcast, but we've been gaming a long time together, not just independently. So we get our what would you call it? Like it's like dad time, you know. It's like we get our own little game time, which is actually kind of what birthed the True Dad Materia thing. We're like, well, if we're gonna play games together, we might as well record it and people can laugh at us. It'll be a great time. Notice I said at us, not with us.
Well, yeah, it's our jokes don't generally get the laughs. It's our not being good at things or something.
Yeah, or talking in poor Scottish accents, which has been noted. But anyways, all that to say, we now, it's like I look forward to this because it's like we get to hang out and have fun. It's not about the gaming. Like we enjoy gaming together, but it's about hanging out. Yeah. So it's when you have that mentality of the game is not the important part, then you're going back in the right direction. Right. So that's just a very brief. It's not like super brief because it's me, but it's a very brief summarization of my past in gaming.
Yeah.
And I regret turning off the AC unit, so I'm gonna have to turn that back on.
It's toasty.
It's a little toasty in here. So if you guys hear buzzing, just let me know.
Yeah. Well, we've got your part out of the way. Mine, it's fine. It'll be the little low end of my voice that's now missing. All right.
Anyways, Ryan, tell us what's your lore?
So goodness. I have probably been gaming 28 years.
Yeah.
Roughly. I really started gaming. So my father left when I was quite young. I was 3, and my mom remarried when I was 6. And my stepdad, my dad, not really into video games. My stepdad had grown up with the Atari, had been really into video games for maybe the first Christmas that he was an official part of our family. He got our family a Super Nintendo.
Nice.
He told us we were going to get socks. So he got this big old tub, like Rubbermaid tub, filled it with socks. And he was like, look, everybody, I got you this present. And we opened it, and we were all excited. And it was a bunch of socks.
Yeah.
And we dug through it, and there was a box with the Super Nintendo and a bunch of games.
That's the best way to hide an SNES.
Oh, yeah.
A SNES.
A SNES, yeah. The Nintendo 64 later was dog toys.
Yeah.
So it was fun. But basically, he introduced me. Like, I had friends that play video games, and I would play, sometimes a little bit at their house, but usually not a whole lot. Because we were 6, so this became kind of a bonding thing between me and my stepdad. Right there, attaching a higher level of importance to it because of the kind of emotional bonding with a father figure. I also remember the exact moment when I realized that I was better at games than him, which he still hates to this day. We were playing Tetris Attack, and he it's a game where you're switching tiles around to make lines, and when you clear a line or multiple lines or whatever, it dumps those lines on top of your opponent. And so basically I was switching things around, and he had stacked up all of these tiles, and it was when it gets to the top, it shakes, and you have a little bit of time to try and fix it. He had me stacked up to where it was shaking, and I reversed it all, dumped it back on him, and beat him. And from that day on, I have been better at video games than him.
He'll never live it down.
Never. I am worse at video games than most people.
But not him.
It's not a high bar. But
if you're listening to this, we love you.
Yes. Yeah. It's all spoken in love.
Yep.
But I would, I would watch him play games later, struggle with a boss, learn how to do it, and then go and beat it, 5 minutes. So, basically growing up, it was a big part of my life, very similar to you, in that, I was homeschooled, so I would get done with school as quickly as possible. Sometimes I could get up early, be done with all my schoolwork by 8:30 in the morning. But my parents quickly saw a pattern and implemented a rule that I could only play an hour a day. Which changed when I was a teenager, and that I could only play after 3 p.m. So I was forced when I was younger to find other ways to entertain myself, and sometimes in my early teens, maybe tween years, I found some really good book series that I really enjoyed. So read Lord of the Rings, and read kind of some abridged version of some classics and some non-abridged versions. So abridged version of Around the World in 80 Days, and Ben-Hur non-abridged versions of Ivanhoe and things like that. A lot of good books. So I kind of started to develop a love of reading, but I also didn't like to read anything that was forced on me. So I any of my school reading I didn't really care for. And I, of course, loved like movies and anything similar that would entertain me without me having to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was very much a dopamine-driven, entertainment-driven focus, and a very self-focused lifestyle. So I loved going and hanging out with friends, but most of what we did, the friends that I wanted to spend most time with, was play video games, watch movies, and sometimes walk around in the woods. So when I got married, I was not super. I wouldn't say. I mean, we didn't play games together a lot.
Yeah.
So my wife, she kind of enjoys some games, but I tried to introduce some games to her. She tried to play them because it was something that was important to me, and then really was kind of like, meh.
Not that interesting.
And then she got into Skyrim, and I was like, I love you. You marry me again. And so she put in, a bunch of time into a character, and that was fun. You know, I'd watch her play, and we'd take turns or whatever, and she enjoyed watching me play, which was kind of fun. It's like every guy's dream. I'll just play video games, and you can sit next to me and love me. Maybe you can make me some food. And so I was living the dream. But it was
the true American dream.
True American dream, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would basically, like, I had all these goals and aspirations. I'm very entrepreneurial, have my own business, have had it for 7-8 years, restarted it 4 or 5 times in between, accepting jobs with clients and things like that.
Yeah.
And it, I kept noticing this problem that, like, in particular with mobile games. So every time I would get a mobile game, it would just consume every waking moment. Like, there are idle games where you're supposed to just like check it every now and then, do a couple things, then put it back. That's not how I play idle games.
You're constantly playing them.
I am always clicking something, always have it up. I'm always like adjusting things. I'm watching it, waiting for that next moment when I can like increase the level or whatever. It's really, really like,
that's dangerous.
Pitiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I relatively early into our marriage, I was playing Final Fantasy Brave Exvius.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, great.
I joined you in that
game.
phase.
You did, yeah, briefly, and then you were kind of like me, and I was like, no, you don't understand.
You must keep playing.
Yeah. So, it was ridiculous. I was up like late at night playing it. I would first thing in the morning, I would grab my phone and start playing it. Like I'd be sitting watching a movie with my wife, pick it up and do a couple things and like put it back. And it got to the point my wife was like, "Hey, like, are you still in this marriage? Like, I'm here as well." And she also is very supportive, very good about being kind and tactful in presenting what an idiot I've been. But she was just kind of like, look, I don't feel loved. I don't feel valued. You're giving all of this time and attention to the phone. And I realized that as I'm going through ups and downs in my entrepreneurial journey, and associating all of my value with my success in business, that anytime something got hard, or anytime I was approaching some goal and it felt difficult or overwhelming, I would like sink into gaming and a lot more hours.
Yeah.
So it was a crutch to feel progress when it was hard to feel progress in real life.
Yeah.
And that was distracting me from the work that I needed to be doing to actually see success. And then B, it was also distracting me from my wife and my later and from my children. And there have been several times that I never did a year fast. But there have been several times where I've gone off video games for Lent, or I've done a fast for a week or a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Anytime I find myself getting a mobile game, like a mobile app, I have to delete it. Like, just I basically have to have a rule: no mobile apps. And then if I catch myself like getting like wordscapes or something, I'm like, oh, this isn't the same. It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
Well, it's okay. So wordscapes, I can just play one like puzzle a day and just be like, meh. But then they play all the ads, and I'd see the ads, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun.
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's the
should try
worst.
that.
That's
Yeah.
how they get you.
It is.
Which, it's funny because it's not Wordscapes. What's the Words with Friends?
Words with Friends, yeah.
So Words with Friends. I quit playing Words with Friends with my wife. She's a aggressive Scrabble player.
Yeah.
And by aggressive, I mean she will strategically pin you into a corner.
Yeah.
And just destroy you.
I challenge you, Jenny.
Yeah, you guys should, because it would be great. But
take you down.
She played a 4-letter word, jail, for 130 points.
Dang!
And as soon as she played that, I uninstalled Words with Friends. I was like, never again.
Yeah.
Never again. But all that to say, I went down the same road. Yeah. The mobile games, they're a time suck.
Yeah. They're a time suck. They're really they're accessible.
Yeah.
They're in your pocket.
Yeah.
They're always there. So the second anything hard pops up, it's super easy. Like you're like, oh man, I've got this thing for school or this thing for work, or like, I've got this thing that I'm stressed about. Whoop, let's just self-medicate, and play a little.
Or I've got downtime.
Yeah.
Sitting waiting for my wife to get in the car so that we can leave. Like,
right.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, wife's getting the kids buckled. I better update this thing. Or I've got to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna play this. Yeah. Oh, I've been in the bathroom for 45 minutes. So,
I can't feel my legs.
Yeah. So I mean, it really, video games. I enjoy, in a chemical sense, mobile apps.
Yeah.
It actually bothers me that I stop playing regular video games, like on consoles or PC.
Yeah, things with an actual story.
Right. Because of how addicted I am. And I realize that I'm playing those apps for the chemical release and sense of progress more than actually for the enjoyment of the game, which it's the same type of enjoyment, but it's kind of like the difference between watching a kids show on crack versus like watching a movie.
Yeah. It's like watching the Rocky series.
Yeah.
Versus watching anything nowadays. You watch anything and then you go back and watch the Rocky movies. They're only, they're like an hour and a half long. They feel like a 5-hour movie. Yeah. Because there's nothing that happens in those movies.
It's just slower. And you know what? I do enjoy going back watching older movies and just enjoying the dialogue.
Yeah.
So my wife and I have been watching a lot of Jane Austen movies lately. So we watched the BBC Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
And we watched the newer Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, with Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies?
No.
Or vampires? Which one?
This is zombies? There's one with zombies.
Yeah.
There's a Bride and Prejudice, which is
Bride and
Prejudice. That is the Bollywood version. Also quite good.
Okay.
We watched it's just a good story.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
We watched the I don't remember her name. The newer version with the British actress, that one.
No, I never watched Pride and Prejudice. Jenny did. She enjoyed it.
So good. So we watched a couple versions of that. We watched Sense and Sensibility, which is wonderful.
Okay.
Then we watched Persuasion, which is kind of okay. It's honestly like most of it's too slow, and the ending is kind of like pretty good. But it's like meh.
Okay.
And then we watched Emma, which honestly, looking back, I used to think was like really good. Now I'm like meh. It's really really just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that they are almost exclusively dialogue driven. There is very little like action or excitement, and it's just a very slow movie. The BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, 5 hours long. It's episodic in nature, and I think it's fantastic, but it's very slow and it's older.
Yeah.
So some cheesy stuff here and there, but
it's normal.
Very well done. And it kind of forces you to focus on things that are less exciting. And
so it wouldn't be a good escape if you're stressed out about work. You're not like, oh man, I have to go watch Pride and Prejudice.
That's not usually my go-to for stress with work. Usually if I'm stressed out about work, I have to go and do work.
Yeah, I mean that is the solution. In most cases, if you're stressed about something, you might just have to go do that thing.
Yeah, and usually it's because I'm stressed that I didn't do enough, and I go and do a little bit and catch up on something, and I feel better.
Right.
If I'm stressed out about like what ifs, then usually focusing on something else helps. So like, take some time, stop, pray, give it to God, and then like go spend time with my wife or kids, or
Yeah.
usually gets better.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done that. I have that, less stress about, what ifs, but sometimes like when I'm working, and we've briefly talked about this before, but when I'm working and you just like everything is going wrong, you're just like, you know what? I know full well that the rest of this day is not going to go smoothly. I can just feel it. So you just got to take a break. But the trick now is I don't take a break and go play video games.
Right.
Or sit down and, play on my phone. And because I used to, I won't lie, I'd go home and be like, all right, short day, I'm going to go play games.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if you are in the middle of a stressful workday and you take a break to play games, you will not want to work afterward.
Yeah.
Because just all of that auction that your brain has every time you make a decision, like that weighs the effort versus the reward, it will always see the reward as greater to play video games, or after playing video games, you'll always see the effort as too great to exert. So to motivate yourself to do the hard thing or to go back to work is next to impossible.
Well, and on top of that, you didn't do anything for the stress. The stress is still there.
Oh yeah.
You just masked it.
Yeah.
Which that's worse, because then you go, okay, well now I have less time and still have the same amount of stuff I have to get done.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with that.
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely. So.
But
yeah. So I mean, as far as my story, like backstory goes, a lot of it was just like, that the big problem that I found with gaming was that I was using it as an escape and a way to self-medicate if something felt too hard. Because I wanted to be good at stuff. I was really smart. I was really good at a lot of things that I did. And if something came up that presented a challenge, then I would then turn towards something where I could make quick and easy progress instead of doing the work.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was medication. It was an escape. And I found that mobile games are the big problem for me. Often I can, if I'm playing console games, I can go days without playing, and be fine with like reading or, sit and talk with the wife for the evening or play. I did a 1,000-piece puzzle in 2 sittings,
nice.
when I had COVID. So I
enjoy puzzles now. I'm not going to lie. Maybe, people are going to be like, that's because you're getting old. Yeah, you're getting old. You enjoy puzzles. But like in all seriousness, Jenny and I went, we went on a Thanksgiving trip with her family, and we rented an Airbnb, and it was, I wouldn't say it's out in the woods, but like it wasn't really close to anything else. Right. And so we, I forget what it was. Like the weather wasn't the greatest, and we're like, well, what are we going to do? And we just literally just sat at the table and did a Thomas Kincaid puzzle. And it was the worst because it was a metallic puzzle.
Oh no, I've seen those.
So, and you would be looking at the other side of the table and see a shade of, because it's all like this greenish, grayish, silverish, right? And you're like, okay, that's not my piece. That's not my piece. And then like an hour later, you're like, fine, I'll just look at it. And that was your piece because over there, it looks like a different color than what it does right in front of you.
That's horrible.
And it was so stressful. But it was like, that moment was like all of us, our whole family was all together doing a puzzle for hours on end.
Yeah.
And it was because we're cracking jokes and, picking on each other and calling each other blind. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
And that's the great thing. Yeah. It's, puzzles and board games and things like that. You can, even if they don't provide a great opportunity, like if you have to focus on what it is and you don't talk a lot through it, it can still be a great way of spending time together, bonding.
Sure.
Now, the things that allow you to talk, like doing a puzzle or games that don't require a lot of like extra thought, you can talk between turns, stuff like that, is great for bonding with
absolutely.
Your extended family, your kids as they get older. It's a great way of like using your brain, staying sharp that way, but also like just having fun together.
Yeah.
And it's an analog thing that doesn't feed you as much dopamine, but it's still plenty of dopamine, like classic dopamine, coming from like lower, less synthetic means.
Well, and something I wanted to kind of touch on, I briefly brought it up, as far as like the people that I played games with, when I was younger weren't really my friends. And, I'd like to touch on that because humans in general are a social people. There's a lot of people, and it's growing even more and more. Everyone's like, well, I'm antisocial. You're not antisocial there's a lot of people that are offended by everything, and now everyone's afraid to say anything, or they just don't want to be involved in it, or what you can fill in the blank there, right? They can be any number of things, but humans by nature are social people.
Yeah.
So that means the gaming industry, for the most part, is actually antisocial.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Skyrim, I would love Skyrim more if it was multiplayer.
Yeah. If they had a decent mod that worked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Because then it could be social, and you could actually my wife probably wouldn't enjoy it, and that's all right. But Ryan and I could play it, or whatever. Shoot, him and his wife would play it. And they play it a lot. The point being, video games by their nature are antisocial because they're meant to be individualistic, right? There are a lot of social ones. There's Call of Duty, which I think is actually antisocial because all the 12-year-olds. But there are a lot of social games, right?
Yeah.
But early on, when I was playing games, I played RuneScape a lot. I mean, that was like my go-to. I was so proud because I had maxed out characters, and which doesn't mean anything for my life. The however many billions of dollars worth of gold coins that I made doesn't do a single thing for my
the exchange rate is not high.
Yeah, it's not high. It's actually almost non-existent. Oh wait, it is.
Yep.
However, the thing that I would lean on was the friends on there, right? And it was always like, oh sweet, so and so's on, I'll play with him. And of course, my parents would be like, well, you don't actually know, that could be a 40-year-old guy sitting in his mom's basement, blah blah blah. It's like, you're right, but I'm enjoying, we're chatting, and I'm not asking him where he lives and what he does, and we're playing the game, right? The thing is psychologically what that does is changes your friendship to only that game.
Yeah.
And that hinders you, because from a social aspect, you can only connect to people based on that game.
Yeah.
And these friends, no matter how long you've known them, are not the same as having friends in person that can actually, if you're struggling with something, they can actually be like, hey, if you need to talk, let's talk.
Yeah.
They'll talk with you, but then that's it. They're not going to come over and make you a meal or give you a place to crash, or, what real friends and real humans should be doing. So that's something you gotta be careful in the gaming community, just going for the gaming only friends, and obviously the world's a little crazy anyway. So a lot of those, you don't really know what people believe and what they value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I wanted. That was the main thing. Those weren't really my friends, and my wife had helped point that out a few times. Because I had, even while we were married, I'd have friends I was playing with, and she'd be like, well, they don't really sound like they're that nice. They tell you they're not gonna, which this is always it was that funny. I don't know if you've ever heard the Flight of the Conchords skit about hurt feeling, or the song about hurt feelings, where they say, he goes, I called my friends to see if they wanted to go in town, and they said no, they don't want to. So I went in town. Turns out they were in town. Now I've got hurt feelings. It's it's like that. It's like, oh, well, they said they weren't going to play, and then now I'm online and they are playing, but they're not playing with me. It's like, but it's like it's silly, but those things do affect us.
Oh, they do, yeah.
So you drive over to their house and I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Break their PC.
Break their PC, and boom, felony, just like that.
Yep. It's dangerous.
Games are bad for your life. Slippery slope. Oh, man. Yeah. Anyways, anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that if we make True Dad t-shirts, Slippery Slope needs to be
to be on it. I agree.
Just like Punji Pit at the bottom, and person with a controller in a lazy boy sliding toward the Punji Pit.
And as the further down they get, they become an older and older person.
Exactly.
Yep. I like it. So, speaking of which, Tony, if you're out there, if you can get on our caricatures, I would absolutely love it. I will pay you for them.
Yeah, we got an offer for caricatures, possibly for money. I mean, he had initially offered potentially to do it for free, but why make an artist?
I'll bribe him. It could be bribed, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So that could be fun. We could in the future have some caricatures, which would probably be very accurate representations of who we really are.
Yeah.
My guess is that my head will be much larger in the drawing than it
Mine
is in
will
real
probably
life.
be far shinier.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
So, I mean, I think as far as backstories go, like, we're normal people. Most people have probably gone through similar things. I do remember times being at friends, like brothers' houses when I was younger. The brother would be married, have a kid. Kid would be like screaming on the floor, and he's playing video games, like
just
completely ignoring his kid,
Yep.
expecting his wife to take care of the kid. The wife is burnt out, frustrated. I mean, Lord knows I've been, like busy with video games while my wife needed help with something. And when I, like, one of the turning points in our relationship and like her being okay with me playing games, like one thing I've always done well is I've always been like, hey, do you mind if I play games? And she's like, you don't need to ask me for permission. Like, she's always said that. But I realized and finally communicated to her, I'm not asking you for permission. I'm asking, like, do you want to do something else? Because I want to play video games. And so, like, that communication, as that kind of opened up and I was like more intentional, like, hey, did you want to do anything? I was thinking about playing games, but like, if you want to do something, I would totally prioritize that over games.
Yeah.
That helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then whenever I started like playing more datable games that I could just pause, or on the Switch where I can just turn it off in the middle of a cutscene or whatever, I would do that. So like I had a time when I was playing a game and I was like in the middle of a boss battle and she like called me and she needed some help. Paused it and went and helped her, and then like, I don't know, it was maybe like an hour and a half later, something like that. I went back and I was like, hey, I'm just going to finish this boss battle and turn this off. And she was like, you stopped in the middle of a boss battle? She was like, I feel so loved.
She knows how important that
She's
is.
She's like, you could have just finished it. And I was like, yeah, but like, this is more important. This is real life.
You needed help. Yeah.
Like big brownie points there. So it helps to have a healthy perspective and healthy relationship with games, to prioritize real life. And if you find that you personally have a specific weakness or a crutch, or you have an unhealthy relationship with games in some way, then, set up boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
Talk to your wife if you are married, or, like if you're not married, then, girlfriend or whomever, just like get some accountability, let them know like, hey, I've identified that this is an issue for me. I'm going to try and avoid this. I want you to help me stay accountable. Yeah. And maybe that's a friend, maybe it's a significant other, whatever. But
yeah. I think, the boundaries is a good point. And you even brought up, you asking, is it okay if I play? And I had gotten in, and that was one of the arguments that Jenny and I got into. And it was, well, I asked if I could, and you said I could. And, she's right, like she wasn't like lying. She said, no, yes, you can. The problem was, I asked if I could, she said yes, and then she got into this like, well, you shouldn't have to ask me, you should just know. But then she would second that, which this is the point that like it took me a while to realize, like, yeah, you're absolutely right, like I don't prioritize, because she's like, you should know whether you can and can't, and whether it's good for you or for us, meaning her and the kids, or if it's not. And if you can't recognize that, then it's probably not good for you. Yeah. And that's, I mean, just straight out. And those are the boundaries you have to set. Yeah. And her confronting, wasn't really confronting, her, informing me of that really helped me from that point on. Anytime I'd want to go play a game, for instance, I would ask, but, before I'd ask, I'd think, okay, am I asking even though I see like dishes need to be done and I should be doing that, or even though this kid's screaming and I should probably be helping this kiddo calm down, or whatever those things are. So boundaries is very important. The other really important thing is communication. Girlfriends, wives, it's not just a women thing, but significant others in general don't always communicate clearly what they actually desire. Yeah. Most of the time, and all credit to our wives, because they're very like generous and kind and loving, will not tell you because they want you to still feel the enjoyment,
Yeah.
right? They know that we get enjoyment from playing games. They know that we like it. So if we ask, they're like, oh, yeah, you can, because they're thinking I'll be selfless so that they can play games.
Right.
Right. And so you need to either A, set those boundaries so that you don't squander that. B, communicate very clearly and figure out, okay, I know you said I could play games, but do you actually want me? Like, is it, is this really okay?
Yeah.
Do you want me to? Because that would be the next question. If you ask yourself, does my wife want me to play games? The answer is almost always no, right?
Right.
That's never going to be a yes question.
Yeah.
And that's, and that's kind of one of those, like, me internalizing was like, oh, well, if she doesn't want me to play games, because you don't want to ask yourself that.
Right.
Because you know the answer.
Exactly.
So if you ask yourself and you're like, okay, well, she doesn't want me to, but I'm going to anyways. Well, okay, red flags.
Yep.
Let's think through this. So all those things, set boundaries, very clear communication, and don't just take the answer, on the surface level, because she'll tell you, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And we actually joke in our family, we joke, fine's a lie.
Yeah.
That's the quote. Fine is a lie. If someone's like, yeah, it's fine, I'm fine. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Let's talk. And there's not always a great time or place to have those conversations, but you will eventually be able to walk through that conversation and be like, I really truly want to know when I ask this, is it okay?
Yeah.
And that's, everyone's different. So you'll have to figure what that looks like for you, what that looks like for your wife, or girlfriend, whatever the situation is.
Oh yeah.
Boyfriend, maybe you're a girl gamer.
Yeah.
If
you're watching true dad Materia, then like you may not be in the right place, but we appreciate your patronage.
Yeah. And hopefully we have advice that still helps.
Yeah. Well, and so one thing, just quick note, women want to feel desired. They want to feel pursued, valued, loved, chased. Anybody wants to feel loved and desired.
Yeah.
But like women especially, like, guys, we want to feel powerful, significant, competent.
And powerfully significant.
But like women want to feel desired.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, every waking moment or every chance you get free time, are playing video games, you're not showing her that you desire her. Even if you're like, hey, do you want to play with me? There's a phenomenal song by the Australian comedy band Tripod called Gonna Make You Happy Tonight. And it's all, I don't want to spoil it, but I will. Yeah. It's kind of all about like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna make you happy tonight, and like, turn the lights down low, and like we're gonna play video games. Is the gist of it. Well worth listening to.
That's funny.
Maybe we can drop a link in the description.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the description.
But I sent that to my wife as soon as I heard it. It was hilarious. But it's very much the case. Like, hey, guys, we want to play video games. We want to like do this thing, have fun, feel progress, feel powerful, and that's not giving time, attention, and love to our wives or girlfriends, significant others. So if we can put them first, and like, yes, if we are asking them if we can play video games, we're giving them the opportunity to say, yes, you can play video games, or actually, can you do this thing with me? But if you're doing that like every night and they're always saying, yes, go ahead, you probably need to like intentionally work some stuff in where you can be like, hey, I thought tonight we could play this game together, or hey, I thought maybe you could teach me how to bake something, or like what not to
do a puzzle
sexist with roles or whatever, but like do a puzzle, like, hey, do you want to watch a movie? Like my wife's been on this Regency kick lately and Victorian kick, and so we've really enjoyed watching those Jane Austen movies. Lately she's been watching like these like absurdly expensive like mansion walkthroughs, like we do these house tours.
That's where it starts.
Yeah,
and then it gets crazy, and then you're like, oh yeah, so you want me to build what?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Maybe
I
that's
don't
just
build
me.
houses. Yeah,
Maybe that's just me.
yeah. My wife's more like, I want you to buy that for me,
Yeah.
but not as much as I'm like, I want me to buy that.
I
for
want
me.
you to pay Dustin to build that for me.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I've got a channel that I want you to watch for
Yeah,
our future homes.
Oh man.
But yeah, just like if you are playing a lot of video games and you haven't intentionally spent time focusing on your wife, like consider what she would want to do and offer to do that like proactively instead of playing video games sometimes. See the difference it makes.
Yeah, for sure.
You're big.
Yep, I second completely. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the just chatting.
Yep.
We appreciate everyone who listen online and watch our YouTubes.
Yeah.
The tubes of you. But yeah, if you like our content, obviously, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff, but comment and let us know if there's a topic you'd like us to cover.
Yeah.
We would love, we don't have all the answers, but we would love to answer what we can.
I promise you that I can answer any question that you have. It will not necessarily be a good answer or the right answer, but it will be an answer.
I second anything.
I'm a professional consultant. That's what I do.
This is true. Yeah, he'll answer anything.
I try and give the right answer if I have it, but But yeah, ask us what you want to hear, and we'll do our best to cover it and give some insight from our experiences.
Cool. Yep, and we'll catch you next time
on Just Chatting with True Dad Materia.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to this episode of Just Chatting with True Dad Materia. If you enjoyed this or would like to hear a specific topic covered, make sure to comment. And of course, to help support our channel and stay in touch with the latest content, be sure to subscribe or follow depending on your platform. If you want to follow our gaming shenanigans, you can find us on Twitch at True Dad Materia. Thanks, and in True Dad fashion, save early and save often.